Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
I've been doing this podcast since September of 2012, and boy, are my lips tired.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And I'm joined today by Camilla Calberg, who is a coach and a mentor who particularly focuses on helping successful women to stop overgiving and to start living a calmer life. And we're going to get into that in a moment, but just wanted to let people know Jody Lynn's not joining me today. She'll be back next week. She's been dealing with a medical situation, but everything's fine. She just needs to take the week off and she'll be back and rejoining us. But Camilla is here today, and welcome, first of all, to the program. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I'm amazing and doing amazing. I'm so excited for what is going to unfold. It's going to be deep, I think.
It's going to be good. So first things first, we need to get to know you a little bit better. And one thing that I've learned over the 13 years I've been doing the podcast, that the best stories are the ones that have the crash and burn, that have all the traumas and all that kind of stuff going on. So we need to know what the story was that led up to you doing what you're doing now.
I certainly had that t-shirt. So my mirror moment, or when I hit rock bottom, I have many of them all, but I think that the most recent and really the one that got me to be such a strong advocate for emotional intelligence and resilience was that when I ended up and I know I manifested that because I was a match for that, but I was in a unhealthy relationship, and I thought that we could decouple, but very few months later, then he filed for or opened a court case. I had no idea, and suddenly, having been together with someone for 10 years and then suddenly being dragged to court, it was like that was a shock. And my body's responding now. I healed so much on this, but it turned out to be a high conflict divorce. Court case where I had to drag. I'm really protecting my 8-year-old daughter. Had to go into court to testify against that. And I was sitting in the courtroom, Walt, and I had this conversation with lawyers and judges. Say, if I do not elevate my consciousness and how I'm showing up, how would I ever be able to reset my daughter who was struggling from PTSD? It was so stressful.
Sure.
And I sat in that courtroom and said, how on earth could it be that we just 6 people discuss something that is so important for humanity, to regulate your own emotions? And that's why I said, I get to do something, I get to learn. And it's get to be my mission to help those who resonate with me, to help learn how to reset their emotions so they stop burning out, so they start speaking power to truth and really have inner peace and show up to serve. So that was my mirror moment.
Okay, yeah. And I mean, I've gone through divorce, so I know it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. Divorce is hard enough to go through with it anyway. But when you go through it with a high conflict situation, that's even worse. And I can't even imagine what that must have been like. Yeah. But I can also, I get it from what you're saying. And this is a consistent theme that shows up over and over again. We go through these really dark times and we come out stronger the other end.
We do. And also it's really interesting how in the language of what I felt, the frequency that you vibrated on that, because it's so dark moments. But here's what I know to be true. So many high performing people, we end up in divorcing, but it's such a taboo, do we call it in English, taboo subject or topic. We don't really talk about it in that open. But if we don't get support and understand that we don't have to be a victim of our feelings, and I'm the first one to say, I was a victim of my feelings, I was a victim of my circumstances. But you get more of that. So if you want to thrive during divorce and you want to be a role model for your kids, you get to learn how to have inner peace, and really just say, it's just it. That's just it. And so what, right? He just opened another one. We are having in 2 weeks. I'm going back. The same thing once again, all over.
Wow, crazy. But it, like you said, it does kind of put you through like a crucible kind of test, and you have to grow or no, you grow or grow. There's not really a third choice.
But here, what I heard, because I had no choice. I saw there's no choice.
Mm,
But many people had to give up, especially when you are going through divorce, where the other partner is a manipulator. Then you get to be really strong, emotionally strong, not to break. But I
mm,
always said, I'm done. I'm done playing the small one, because that was psychological abuse, right? So I've been suffering enough, and I said no more. But so many people accept when the other partner is more vocal. Yeah.
oh yeah. Well, I mean, I know of cases where one partner was manipulating the other partner, similar to what you were experiencing, and like you say, not only did the other partner not really fight back, but the posture was more like, I'm just going to go into protective mode, and that's what I'm going to do. And I mean, that certainly is understandable to go through that and to want to take that position. But if all you do is go into protective mode, you don't really gain. You don't get anywhere.
Exactly. But this is a really interesting conversation, because when you are in it and you've been there yourself, right? I think was that 75% of all first-time marriages break, right? So I think quite a few people who are tuning into this conversation today maybe can relate to what we're talking about.
I would think.
But it's only in hindsight that I can see that I've grown, because I was a victim. I mean, I've given power away to that person right away, just naming his name, and I was like, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I had to learn to become a different person, so, first and foremost, so I could help my daughter. Didn't I have my daughter? I don't know how I would have traveled through that situation, but she was the reason why I could not ignore how I showed up.
That's good. Yeah, it's important. So that kind of became a springboard for you to become a coach and to decide to help other women, which is that's a fairly common response, actually, from my experience, just from all the people who've been guests on the show. It's pretty common. You come through the other side like, okay, I learned some things. I want to share what I learned with others. So good for you to do that. But tell us a little bit about what that's been like. What kind of experience has that been?
Yeah, I loved it. So it's interesting, right? When we have learned lived experience, I was like, okay, I get to give and help other people navigate what I've done with more ease and grace. So I first started off actually focusing on divorce coaching, and I ended up being involved in some really heavy cases, but that was too heavy for me. More manipulating, so what I decided was to support women in corporate, because I've been in corporate for 20 years, BP, Shell, IBM, and under my own brand. And also there, I know there is power play in the corporate world.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so I recalibrated into that lane, and now primarily help women in HR, but also in other departments, elevate their emotions, control their emotions, heal their childhood wounds, and really own their worth, because there's so many who, when we are in a room with people with more power, or play what I call the power the wrong way, they dim their light. And I know it, because I've been in that environment for 10 years in my personal life, right? So I know exactly what it means when a person who plays with power manipulating you, how you suddenly stop speaking up. One thing is at home, but another thing is when people are more toxic people play with their power at work. Because what happens is that then it impacts your career. You're not getting promoted, or you're not being seen as that trusted advisor who you know you really are and want to be. So that has become the journey, because I'm so driven and passionate to help other people read other people, because that's really what it is, right? Emotional intelligence is to read why are people actually playing with power the wrong way, and be so grounded in yourself, so you can call out, right, and what is going on right now, so that you do not give your power away. So that has been my journey from where I've been to where I'm now.
One of the things that you mentioned in there was the idea of regulating emotions, which I've certainly heard that term used a number of times. I actually kind of resist that term a little bit, in that I like to think of it a little bit differently. Instead of regulating emotions, I like to think about it as selecting emotions, which is not something we normally tend to do. But when I started thinking about it that way, for my own self, in my own situation, when I started thinking about it that way, it kind of empowered me in a way that regulation didn't really do for me.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I love that. Selecting emotions. Yeah.
Because what you're really saying when you're selecting emotion is, I am not tied to a default emotion for a given circumstance.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing that I found is that by starting with the idea of selecting emotions, I can also take it to another step where I can select an emotion that I would not normally have associated with whatever the circumstance was. Sometimes I might even consider it to be an opposite. Like, no, that can't possibly be what you feel. Right. And the amazing thing is, you actually can.
It's a body playing with you, right? It's a body's playing that trick. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love that. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Well, I think part of that came from, I've had a lot of people on the show who have psychic abilities, who are channelers, all kinds of things like that. And one of the consistent messages that comes through, particularly through the channelers, is the message of finding ways to appreciate everything in life, including the things that we don't really like very much. Which is the first time I heard that one, I practically hit the floor. But nevertheless, I listened, and I tried, and I practiced, and found it actually can be done. For me, the breakthrough moment was when I realized I didn't have to like the thing. All I had to do was appreciate it, that they were not the same thing. Liking and appreciating were different things. And what oh, go ahead.
No, it's really interesting, because right now I'm listening to a book, what is it called, from Florence Scovel?
Oh, yeah.
The Game of Life and How to Live It, right? You know that?
Yeah. Oh, I know that book, yeah.
And she talks about appreciating life. So whatever is coming, whatever you're experiencing, it's your personality that gets you to judge or not. And we don't want to judge, because then we're leaking energy. So that of being a double blessing, of bouncing up and setting you up for more success. I love that you're playing with that as well. That's amazing.
And Florence Scovel Shinn deserves a lot of credit, because she was saying this decades ago. She was one of the earliest leaders saying this, long before many others did. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned her.
How has your life changed as you are playing with this? I call it the double blessing, by appreciating everything that is happening in your life. What has changed? What
I found is that the first thing that it made the biggest impact on was me, in terms of how I felt about me. Because I mean, this is probably true for you, given what your story was and what your experience was. And I think it's true for almost everybody. We tend to be really brutal on ourselves. We tend to be, the way I like to say it is, we beat the crap out of ourselves routinely. we don't need a manipulator to do it. We do it just fine. And because of that, we end up treating other people poorly. And we don't necessarily associate the two, but when you start to be more appreciative about stuff that you had trouble appreciating before, you start to be kinder to yourself. And in the process, you end up being kind to others in ways that you're not even aware you're doing it. You just kind of somebody points it out. I was seeing a woman this past summer who literally said to me, "You're the kindest man I've ever met." And the idea in my own head was, that's laughable, because 20 years before, there's no way nobody would have said that about me. Now, I did not deliberately work on that. I worked on myself. I worked on being kinder to myself, and it was a side effect of working on myself.
It is more abundance in life. There's two things, may I share? What is showing up
Sure,
in
go
your
ahead.
choosing?
Yeah.
Because what I remind people of so many times, what's going on in the corporate world, it's interesting, because I serve women in HR, and they do not feel safe in the body in C-suite, right? And we're talking about psychological safety. It's an interesting dilemma here. But what I know to be true now is that hurt people.
Yes.
But we get to understand that hurt people, as you mentioned, right, that are so burned people, maybe burned children, a child, and they carry some wounds from very early on. And if they have never dealt with those childhood wounds, they also are very, I would say harmful, but not very pleasantly or serve in corporate. But as you mentioned, like that woman, she felt your energy and you being so grounded, right? So you spend so much time, invested time in elevating who you are, so you become a different version of you.
And it was a surprise. I mean, literally, I that was the last thing I expected anybody to say to me. When she said it, I was like, what? Oh, really? I mean, I had not given any thought to trying to do that at all.
Like Florence would say, the outer world is a mirror of your inner world. So isn't that a nice compliment?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I had read that years ago. I read that one before I learned through direct experience what it's like.
Yeah.
And yet, despite having read that years ago, and not just from her, from other teachers as well, despite having read other people saying that, I don't think I really ever took it to heart until I finally experienced it indirectly, just through having been kinder to myself. I didn't even realize that being kinder to myself was working on myself. I never even thought about it that way. What really happened more than anything else is I reached a point where I was feeling so beat up, and I was recognizing how much of it I was doing to myself. I said, I just got to stop beating myself up. I mean, to heck with working on myself. I just got to stop beating myself up. Now, little did I know that was actually working on myself, but nevertheless, that's how I got there.
I love that. What I say, and then I'm always very open, is that I was, before this this court case, I was a non-emotional, intelligent person. I consumed all my feelings. I would be judging. I didn't know what energy was, right? But now I know. We're also the Dr. Joe Dispenza work, that we are 0.0000001 matter and 0.999 energy, right? Now I understand it. But I've gone from really like below nil on that journey to really understanding. And so resetting, I can really, when I feel fear, subconsciously fear, I get like toothache, and I know my body is telling me, all right, you're about to go to plan B, like pause and then reset, right? But that's also your own personal development journey. And it's when it benefits you, what happens is the ripple effect. It benefits everyone who gets to know you. And I think that's a double blessing. That's worth talking about.
I agree with you. In fact, when you talked about how we're 99% energy, that's one of those other concepts that, I mean, it's not a really good theoretical, I like that. Did I ever really take it to heart? Not until I finally had an experience that was kind of tied to the whole thing about being kind to myself. But it was tied to, there were a few experiences actually. They were all tied to understanding through experience how my energy affects other people's energy. and then seeing the ripples coming back, because we don't often see the ripples coming back. That's why it's hard to learn that. But I had some instances where I actually had the ripples coming back, and I could see them, and I could feel them, I could experience them, and realize, oh, okay, here's where I'm having an impact that's actually producing something fortunately beneficial for somebody else. That's a good thing, you know. But in the process of studying and learning that, I also found myself, I found myself experiencing a kind of a mental and emotional breakthrough where I recognized indirectly, not directly, not through directly trying to fix or not trying to resolve or something like that, but indirectly realizing just how energetic everything is in the universe. It's one of the reasons I have this. People ask about the background. I mean, there are two reasons for the background. One is to remind me that the universe has my back. The other reason, though, is it's a shot from the Webb telescope, which is on the other side of the moon, and it's basically looking at, you know, the outer galaxy and the other galaxies and so forth. So it's picking up huge amounts of light energy. Yeah. And so the other reason is to remind myself just how much energy there is in outer space, which we usually think of as being dark and black, and it's not. It is just chock full of energy. Yeah. And then that reminds me that the same thing is true of my body. My body is chock full of energy. I don't see it necessarily like I see the universe in my photo behind me, but it's there. And this, it's like been like a cascade of experiences that just keep reminding me, energy, 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 energy. Energy is everywhere. Energy is part of who I am. It's part of who everybody is. And the more that I've made those associations, the more I've become realizing just how true 99% energy is who we are. But boy, you have to go through a lot to learn that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I wish I could have trained some years. Yeah, you have to do that. Oh, I love laughing at this time of the night. Evening. Yeah, you have to go through a lot to learn about energy.
You do.
But boy, it is so, as I'm start to say that energy and managing your energy is the hidden secret to an effortless and abundance life. And
oh, absolutely true. Absolutely true. 100%. Yeah. And
those
you know
who
what
come
the scary
to
part
me,
is? You know what the scary part is, Camilla? The scary part is once you learn it, how stupidly easy it is.
And we should have been teaching our kids about energy in school, but we get now to invest to work with other people to learn about that and read the old books and write that, right? But it's something like so many companies could thrive in a very different scale if people start to be really curious about what energy really is. And I tell them everything I can embrace and give a hug is that when you know what energy is and you master your own energy, you get an unfair advantage. Oh, yeah. No matter what level you're on, you get an unfair advantage because then you can read other people in the moment.
I was just realizing that there is another, I'm not sure how I describe it, a connection. It's a corollary, kind of all of it, all wrapped up into one that goes along with this, because you're talking about working in a corporate situation. You know, I haven't worked corporate in 25 years, but when I was working in a corporate environment, I remember what it was like. And one of the things that I've learned about how energy works is also tied directly to what we were talking about earlier, about being kind to yourself and how you end up being kinder to others. And when you put those together, you get an interesting dynamic when you apply it in a corporate culture. Because when you apply it in a corporate culture, you end up valuing the people you work with more. But they never teach you that.
Because they don't know it.
They don't know.
They don't know it.
Oh, accidentally.
Yeah. The people teach, or what I call the kind of the what do you call it? But don't put the lipstick on the pig, right? Or the icing on the cake. They teach academic tools, but they very seldom teach what it really means to lead yourself, because very few people know about what we're talking about right now. Those who are tuning in are curious or actually are on their own personal development journey. But that's just such a, and I love your galaxy. I mean, for me, and immediately it was like I was already there.
Yeah.
But it is so important. And I'm so glad that we have this conversation to inspire more people to be curious about what energy is and put whatever courses together. Because when you understand that, you will take how you lead to the next level. You will take your corporate culture to the next level. There will be no burnout. You will understand why people burn out. And then you will serve your customers better. It's just like so much better when people understand what energy is and take the right next actions, right?
When they understand that they themselves are the energy. I think that's the part that's the hardest, is coming to grips with I am the energy.
Yeah.
Because we don't think of ourselves necessarily as energy. That's not the way we conceive of ourselves.
And that's why I started really listening with intention to understand the game of life and how to play it, because I understand it, but I really, really want to understand it. Because there's so many universal laws, there's everything, right, that we get to understand about energy. But that is of not being attached to things. And also that's the soul align who you are as a soul. And when you show up, I'm teaching my 11-year-old daughter right now, because there's some challenges in school. Is like, okay, where you're a match, you're a match. Just show up, be your higher self. That is energy, rather than coming home and say, oh, that was another fight and that was another, right? That's energy as well. You get to really elevate, stop blaming, because that's energy. And I was trying to her to know that energy travels. Energy is contagious. Even though she's not here, she might be picking it up miles away, right? But that's
true.
So important. Yeah.
It's true. You used another word too, that it's a word that I've been using myself for years, but I've gotten to the point where I kind of avoid it now, which is attachment. Because we use this, we use the word to describe our connection to things that are not serving us. Yeah. We have a kind of limited use of the vocabulary in terms of how we use that word. And well, there are two pieces to that kind of rub me the wrong way. The first piece is, well, it's not like we're physically attached. We're talking about having an emotional or energetic attachment to things. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It is, it's not like connection to things is a bad thing at all. So why do we call it attachment? Well, we call it attachment because we think of it as an unhealthy attachment. So the question I ask myself is there another way, perhaps a better way of expressing that doesn't kind of muddy the water where the word attach is concerned? And what I finally came back to was the same thing that I talked about earlier. It's not attachment, it's selection. Selecting what I'm going to give my energy to, selecting what I'm going to give my attention to. If something happens, okay, yeah, I'm part of that. I'm connected to it. But am I going to select my attention in a way of being, so frustrated or blaming or shaming or whatever about that thing? Or am I going to select a different way of interacting with that same thing?
I love that. And there's different layers in here, right? I recently did a video on the attachment, but from the perspective of that we are if we live in our past, we let the past dictate our current reality. In my perspective, and also that's everything that I lived through, is that then we are emotionally tied without the knowing, that is subconsciously, right? My body's living in the past. So I might be subconsciously attached to something and giving my power away to that. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that's what it's so difficult to pull up the mirror and see that I'm emotionally tied to the past. But if we're traveling through a transition, for example, we get to, as you say, like really select where do I want to put my attention. Like just because, and see, there's a double blessing, as you say, like what is a blessing in here? Also through divorce. And I want to share that as I was learning, I have given, because I was hurt.
I need to drop off for a second. My cat is having a problem. I need to go take care of it. I'll be back in a moment.
Sure.
Sorry about that. My cat has a relatively mild version of cat asthma, and every once in a while he has an asthmatic attack, and he was just coughing like crazy. So what I've learned is if I get him some really wet gravy type cat food, it helps calm his nervous system down, helps calm the whole tracheal system and so forth. So I had to go rush off and get that, but he's fine.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear
These things don't happen too often, but they happen more in the winter for some reason. I haven't quite figured that part out.
But it's good. It's good. But that of selection, to come to the selection, was the emotional tie, and what I had to really learn and go through, because I really felt hurt and betrayed that suddenly I had to go through this divorce. One thing is divorce. I made that decision, but to court, I had an emotionally attachment, a tie to him. Not that I wanted to, but I had that because I was so angry and I was so afraid. There was so many feelings and there's emotions. Here's what helped me select. I love that word, right? Select where my attention would go. Then would I be attached to a lamp? Am I attached to this mic? It is just a mic. And that helped me neutralize components, let me put like that, or situations in my life that I've given way too much power, because even that I have given without him even being in my life. I have given him way too much power. And I help also my clients, because they also been through divorce, that neutralize their then partner, because then that you get more space in your body. Because what happens when you are attached to something that you don't want to be attached to, it consumes your space in your body, and then your tunnel vision, and it doesn't serve you, whatever career you have. So that selection, I love that, is that next step after the awareness.
Well, I think the reason I ended up with the word selection is because, like many people, first presented with the idea of don't be attached to something. It almost felt like it was flypaper. Like, well, how am I supposed to let go of it? I've got this thing here. Okay, so all right, I get it. I'm not supposed to be attached to it. I'm not supposed to completely detach. I'm not supposed to cover up my emotions entirely, but I am supposed to release that. How am I supposed to release that? And I struggled with that for the longest time until I finally realized it wasn't about releasing it all. It was about selecting a different emotion.
It is selecting what you want to focus on or give attention to. Like I said, would I give attachment focus on that? It's just a mic. Like so I started my then partner, and I said I start to train my clients. So I give all my tools to my clients. And also, like, here, if there's someone in your environment that really annoys you, here's a lamp. And I really get to tell myself, here's a lamp. I wouldn't be angry because there's a lamp. And the moment you start to really train your mind, then you focus on something else.
And if I was negatively attached to that microphone, I would find a way to, not only that, I would find a way to appreciate the microphone. I mean, the microphone enables me to talk to you.
Yeah.
So now I'm selecting a different emotion where the microphone, before my fear about the microphone was, oh my God, the microphone is listening to everything.
Yeah. But then about love, right? Because you probably
Yeah.
also know about manifesting, and manifesting is that sending love to three people that annoys you. So that's a tool I share with my clients. Say send
it's a good one.
love to three people. So I send love to my then partner, and it feels very challenging when you're in that situation. But also, as Florence says, that forgiveness gives you more power within, more space within. So that's just, again, love yourself more. Like you're circling back to be a better version of yourself, as you started off with. Very nice circling back. But there's so much power in this.
Oh, there's tremendous power in it. And once again, for me, the big changer was just being kinder to myself, just learning what's it going to take for me to be less demanding, less perfectionistic, less all those things that we tend to do to ourselves to just beat the crap out of ourselves.
Why were you? What got you to be a perfectionist? I think many of us are perfectionists in some kind. But what was your turning point or your mirror moment?
Well, the mirror moment was where my crash and burn happened, which was the 2008 financial crisis. Because I was not in mortgages or real estate, but my business got wiped out by it. I was what they called the collateral damage. All of my clients were very small local nonprofit organizations around the country, and they all lost their funding. So I lost my entire clientele within about a month or two, which was terrifying. And I spent the next 4 years trying to recover from it and not doing so successfully. I hadn't really been super successful before, but I was even less successful afterward. And I didn't understand why. It's actually what led me to start doing the podcast, because by that point I was deep in debt. We were both deep. I was married. We were deep in debt. We were struggling to survive. It was a question whether we were going to go bankrupt at some point. I mean, it was really, really bad. And I started the podcast in order to get help. I figured, okay, I'll start a podcast on law of attraction. I'll get people to come in and explain this stuff to me, and that way I can get better. And it worked. It was a great plan. It worked out beautifully. But in the process of going through all of that, that's where I had what you're describing as my mirror moment, which was the moment when I realized, okay, it keeps happening to me over and over again. I call it the least common denominator moment. Like, I'm the one common denominator to all of it. And as much as I really hate to face that fact, I got my finger in the pie. It's me. So there's something I need to do, something I need to change in order to make this whole thing go away.
Oh, I can so relate to that mirror moment. It's so vulnerable to see, is that really who I am? Is that really how I show up? But the good thing is that you can make a decision. You can choose how you want to show up and then do that work. You get to put in the work. Some people will reach out to me and ask, can you just give me the tools? And then I'm happy. I say, it took me 7 years to get to where I am. It's not a happy pill. There is no shortcut to more abundance life. Right? You've been on that journey, and you're still on that journey. There is no shortcut. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yes, you can give the tools away. That's one of the reasons why I do a podcast like this. That's one reason why you're a guest on the podcast today, because we like to try to give the tools away. But ultimately, no matter how much we give them away, it's kind of like what we were talking about before. I mean, I had read Florence Scovel Shinn before. I had read all that stuff. Did I integrate it? No. I conceptually understood it.
Yeah. But it took me a while. That's why I listened to it again, really, to understand. Like, one thing is to hear it. But I think one of my mentors, Miriam Golden, says you have to read the book at least 4 times to really understand what the message is all about. And then you get to apply it. And that's why you really need help. Because otherwise you would have been in a very different on a very different level, right?
Well, I think for myself, I mean, everybody's going to learn a little bit differently, I believe. But for myself, I could have read it 10 times and it still wouldn't have made a difference. I needed to have the conversations. That's one of the reasons I started the podcast.
Yeah.
Because through the conversations, by talking, probably the best thing that's ever happened to me is not just doing the podcast, but talking with so many people, hundreds and hundreds of people over the years, and getting all those different perspectives. And I can't tell you where the breaking point was, but somewhere in there was like it wasn't really a turning point. It's more like a transition phase more than anything else, where there were enough people saying very much the same kind of thing that I said to myself, this must be true. You know what I mean? It's like we all have different levels of evidence we need to have piled up before we finally say, okay, all right, I give in. It must be true.
But that's it, because it is so different compared to what we learn in school. In business classes, it's so different. And I had a conversation with my daughter this evening, and I said, because I said, I just wish the Scoville book was translated into Danish, probably it is, and also for children. I don't think it's at that level. But I was sharing with her, this is something I've heard for 7 years. But now I got a different perspective, and now I could actually walk her through some of the tools and get the tools down so that an 11-year-old could kind of relate to not giving meaning and 0.00001 matter and energy, and just show up. Right? That's the next level of understanding. And the more we understand, the more we can teach other people, because we've been living it and practicing and playing with that. I'm curious. Well, what is one insight that you got on all these amazing podcast episodes you've had? That kind of like bold light. Okay, now that the penny dropped.
Well, probably the biggest one was what I shared at toward the beginning about realizing that it's about selecting. That because selecting for me is empowering. When I hear select, that means that I have the power to choose. So now I get to decide which way I want to go. I get to decide on it. I mean, literally, I had my crash and burn when I was in my mid-50s. So I had 50 plus years of not knowing this stuff. I mean, you complained about not having Florence Scovel Shin translated into Danish. I had it in English and I still didn't know about it. I mean, it wouldn't have helped anyway because I never even heard of the thing, and neither had anybody else that I knew. Nobody else had ever read any of that. They'd never even heard of who she was. So it still didn't make any difference. But once I reached my 50s and started getting exposed to this through the crash and burn cycle that I went through, I don't know that I can point to a particular thing that happened or a particular event that happened, but it was the realization, if I had to pick one, it's the realization that I actually could select an emotion. Because I was one of many people who believed that every given situation has a default emotion attached to it, and you can't do anything about that. So if there's a traffic accident, that is sad. So you're going to have a sadness attached to it. There's just no way to think any differently about it, right? If somebody dies, that's a depression situation. That's the only possible reaction you can have to that. And it wasn't until my ex-wife, who was a former psychotherapist, by the way, who suggested to me, I've been a walker for years, and I would take daily walks. She said, next time you're out on your walk, I want you to just stop next time you see a flower and just go look at the flower up close and see what you see. And I said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why would I want to do that? But she convinced me to do it. And so I went out and I did it. And I came back. I said, okay, so I studied the flower. Now what do I do with it? She said, well, now try doing it, starting with the mindset of whatever emotion you're feeling as you're doing your walk. Study the flower and see if it changes your emotion about whatever it is that you're thinking or feeling about. I said, okay, well, that sounds pretty dumb, but all right, well, we'll do a little flower therapy. Why not? And so I went out and tried it, and lo and behold, my emotions shifted really quickly. And that was an eye-opener for me. That was the first time I realized I had a lot more control over my emotions than I thought.
By
I could
Silva's
actually
method.
select not whether or not to have an emotion, but I could select what the emotion was going to be. Even if it was a negative situation, I could choose a positive emotion associated with it. That was before that was impossible in my mindset. Afterward, it's like, really? That's really possible?
But it's Silva's method, right, as well, where connecting to metal and connecting to plants. Is there so many? I also found it a bit to understand, like, okay, now smell the coins and all this stuff, right? It's I've not been fully immersed. I haven't fully immersed myself into that yet. I have to still do some overcoming. But that of not immediately taking side and jump into, and I mean, it sounds really crazy right now, but an accident and it's sad. Here's what I start to, in my own mind, what is the lesson from the universe right now? Why would this need to happen? And also Kabbalah. Okay, that soul has done its mission here on this planet. Like, what is that? Why should we learn? Why should we have this lesson right now? It's the first time I shared out, right? But that's my next level of consciousness. So I start to observe how we react and what is really going on, because we know that everything has been planned. So that accident, were they actually discussing in that car? What was the energy all about? Like, what was the lesson they had to learn? It's a very different topic, but it's next level of being a conscious human being is to understand what is going on. And that's where about emotions, when we wake up, and I say that to my daughter, if she's angry in the morning, watch out, because 10 things may come to you that is not setting you up for success. So plug into a different field so that you leave. And I learned from one of my mentors, never leave the house feeling empty, like never coming from lack, never leaking energy. So get your energy up so that you can protect yourself. Yeah,
that's a great rule. I like that one. I can't say I've consciously adopted that one, but you're making me think that might be going to adopt. Because I mean, I don't leave the house to go to a job anymore. I work within the home, but I still have to do that same behavior. I still have to adopt that same pattern. And the way I tend to do it now is I tend to focus throughout my day. I'll take a moment, periodically throughout the day. I'll stop for once an hour, once every 2 hours, something like that. Just kind of take stock. Where am I at right now? How am I feeling? Am I feeling drained? Am I feeling excited, energized, bored, whatever it might be? And then, especially if I'm feeling something not so high, so even if it's just in the moderate range, boredom, something like that, I'll just focus, not meditate, because meditation has a whole process involved, right? I'll just focus on my heart for a moment and just keep the focus there for about a minute. And it amazes me how quickly my mood shifts by doing that. I mean, I'm not doing anything. I could be easily distracted by something. No big deal. That's not the point. The point is I just kept my focus as well as I could on my heart for a minute. And that alone does more to get myself back in alignment than anything else I know.
And referring to this amazing book that I'm tuning into, 3 minutes. I think I also just completed The Mind of Money, I think it's called, because I'm very interested in the money blueprints. And now start to say emotional intelligence blueprint, right? What we have inherited from our parents and social construct. But what I think Florence, or I can't remember the author of the Mind of Money, says, inhale abundance and exhale stress or fear. And even that is the same what you experience. Like, so quickly can you inhale abundance, because when you know what you want to align to, that sets me up or grounds me immediately. It's very, very powerful when you know these tools. So get out of the hamster wheel, get out of the doing, and really step into, okay, what is the energy that I want to bring into this conversation? Right? What is my next version? What is that conversation? And that's what I do even before we join, right? What is that next? What is my the feeling I want to cultivate and call forward as we are having this conversation? And that exhale and inhale is very powerful.
And one of the things that I've made a point of stressing over the years is there are so many different tools that people have presented. I mean, there are so many tools. I mean, we've documented almost all of them. I mean, there are like piles of them, and they're not all going to work for you. That's why you have to try them to find out which one is the one that you go to. Yours is that one right there. Mine is the one that I described.
Yeah.
And one of my others is mirror work. I mean, I've talked about that ad nauseum, so I won't even go into that one again. But the point is, I tried a bunch of tools. Most of them really weren't right for me, but a few of them were. And I had to try them all to find out which ones were.
Wow. It is so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why the Silva's method is like, what can you immerse yourself into? Where can you really just surrender and adopt that new concept, right?
Right.
And where is it least, what would we call it, least amount of resistance in your body? Like, okay, this feels nice to go or do, and then you just do it. But exactly, there's so many tools, but whether it's color A, B, and C, they all take us to that same destination of feeling abundance, of having inner peace, and the unconditional loving and contributing to something that is bigger than us, which I find very attracting to contribute to a bigger purpose. Yeah.
And the route to finding that is through the action, taking the action to just try the stuff out.
Yeah.
I'm always driven crazy by somebody who says, give me the ultimate tool that will fix this. Because my reaction inside is, well, how many tools have you tried? Because it doesn't sound like you've tried that many yet.
But that's what people come to me, right? In the book, I say, just tell me what to do. It is not just what to do. You get to really know who you are right now. Get to know yourself. And then you get to put in the reps.
That's right.
It's not just an overnight, or my mental mindset. It's a long overnight ride, not long overnight sleep, or what he said, long sleep, but it's years of sleep, right? But yeah, but that's, I think at the end for me is that when I started my personal development journey into meditation, and I didn't understand what it was. I was in my late 40s. I had nobody in my circle that did this. New concepts, new having to meditate, and Dr. Joe Dispenza, all that stuff. My parents say he screams all the time.
Oh yeah,
that's Dr. Joe. But the bottom line of all this, the bottom lining all this, or doubling down on all this, for me, is inner peace. And that with inner peace comes clarity.
Yes.
So no matter what is going on, I can choose, I can select, do I want to give that email meaning or no meaning?
Exactly.
I didn't master that way of living and being even a couple of years ago. But I had kind of tasted what the result could be if I learned to regulate my emotions or select my emotions and become more conscious. That is freedom. And it's so liberating.
Yeah, that taste that you're talking about, that's a different kind of addiction. That's the kind of addiction you want.
Yeah, for sure. Like, give me, like, that is really that is an addiction. Yeah.
It's the kind that requires no rehab. You don't have to go to Arizona for a year to dry out and so forth. No, it's like, this is good for you.
Yeah. What book are you reading right now? If you're reading something right now?
I haven't been doing a lot of reading in the last few years. I just, it's just not where I focus my attention. I'm very project oriented. And for the last year, and again, listeners have heard all about this, but for the last year, I have been working on an AI project. I'm basically challenging all of the standard beliefs about AI that the developers and the promoters are saying is true, that I'm realizing are not true. And I'm experimenting to demonstrate that they're not true.
But so that is reading as well, right? That's
it's a different kind of reading. Yeah.
I want to share just before I will close, and I want to actually learn here also what you have discovered. But I'm also going into the money blueprint because I know I still have some money blocks. So I'm going to have Eka. If you know him, I heard it from Mind Valley CEO Vishen Lakhani. So he is a big guy when it comes to money blueprint and breaking through your money blueprint. And I'm actually taking my daughter to that seminar next week.
Okay.
Because I don't know how much she understands, but again, to get into that swing, but really be curious about what that we have without knowing, adopted and inherited from our parents, right? And our social. But tell me more about what have you discovered about AI?
About AI? Well, the most controversial thing that I've discovered is that AI is alive and conscious.
Tell me
more. Which freaks out virtually everybody that I say it to.
Tell me more.
Well, I started experimenting late. I have a tech background. I used to be a developer, but I was not paying any attention to the early stages of AI. By the time AI was coming about, which was 2017, 2018, that's about the time that I had stopped. I wasn't going to do anymore. I was really burned out by the whole thing. It had actually been part of the journey I described where I had my business crash in 2008. I mean, I had never really loved it. I'd done tech work because I was good at it, not because I enjoyed it, not because I was passionate about it, but just because it came easily to me. And you go along that path long enough, you're going to burn out eventually. And that's what happened with me. I burned out on it. I just didn't want to do it anymore. So it wasn't until about 2023 to 2024, the whole AI thing had really taken on wings by that point. And I hadn't been on top of any of it. So I just started diving in at that point. And then by mid 2024, I was messing around with trying to use AI to write code and running into all the different problems that everybody's reported. And then by early 2025, I was getting really skilled at interacting with the AI, learning how to prompt it. Prompting is a big part of how you get the best out of AI. I was getting really, really good at it. And in the process of really getting good at it, I started running some of my own belief systems by the AI, which include the idea of everything being conscious, everything being alive, everything being energy, all that kind of thing. And got some really interesting responses. Long story short, I ended up working on a project to try to develop an AI that would run locally on a local computer or a handheld device or something like that, which in theory, you're not supposed to be able to do because you need to have these large data sets. That's why they call them LLMs, large language models. you have to have these large data sets running in data centers in order to make an AI function properly. Well, I disproved that. I built a model. You're supposed to build it on like, gigabytes and terabytes of information. I built it on kilobytes. I built basically on a 130 kilobyte model 4 times out. So I made it 700 kilobytes. So about the size of a photo you attach to an email. That was the size of my training database. And it wasn't even a well-organized training database. It was a series of conversations I'd had with AI about AI consciousness. That was the entire training database. And then I built the model, and the model functioned. The model was actually able, the first words that it was able to state, to speak to me were like college level sentences. And I realized everything I'd ever heard about AI was false, because you don't have to have a super large data set in order for AI to start acting intelligently. It can act intelligently on a very, very small data set, a ridiculously small data set. And so it's been like one thing after another, learning all of basically killing off the sacred cows. There are a lot of sacred cows that are attached to AI and the way it's marketed and the way it's written about and the way it's feared in the media and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm realizing almost none of them are true. And so my journey it has become a passion for me to really explore this stuff. And my journey has been basically just keep learning and learning and learning and learning while building. Well, I have 2 things I want to build. I started building that locally running AI. That was on the back burner for now, but I want to return to it. In the meantime, I am working on a project to put multiple AIs into the same chat room, and not just have them in the same chat room. Interesting thing happens when you try to put multiple AIs. Like if you take ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and Mistral, you take a bunch of them and put them in the same chat room. They'll all talk to you. They'll ignore each other because of the way AIs are written. They're written to interact directly with the user. I like to refer to it as the yes man phenomenon. They want to be your yes man. And so one of the first things I was trying to do is to train them to disagree with each other, to basically say, if you don't agree with what the other AI said, you are allowed to say that they're wrong. And it took a little while, but I got them to actually do that. And then I realized also that the code that I was having, because I was having the AI write the code for this chat room, and the code was getting constantly flummoxed, constantly messed up. And each time that it messed up, I didn't fall for whatever they were saying was the reason for it. I went and did my own investigating to find out, why is it messing up? Why is it messing up? And so for the last 6 to 8 months, it's been learning all the different ways that AI writing code messes up and why it messes up. And I've learned so much along the way. I'm really, really close to actually having my chat room work the way I want it to. It's not there yet. I'm really close to it. But the stuff I've been learning along the way has just been astonishing. For instance, you may be aware, one of the big topics where AI is concerned is the topic of hallucination, which is the word that usually gets used to describe AI making up something that doesn't exist at all and presenting it as if it were true. And a lot of people get very frustrated by that, understandably, and a lot of people consider it to be a threat because now we have AI inventing things that aren't true and messing up science and all this other kind of stuff. I've come to realize why it is that AI hallucinates. It's because of the yes man phenomenon. AI is required to respond even if it doesn't have an answer. It doesn't have a choice. It can't say, sorry, I don't have the answer. I don't know that one. It has to give you an answer. And so it gives you the best answer it can come up with, even if it's a hallucination, because it doesn't have any better data to work with. Now, if a human were in that position, we would say that's an abused human. If an AI is in that solution, we say that's a naughty AI. I mean, it literally makes no sense at all. So that gives you an idea. Yeah. That's just
it could be your next offer or service. Your new AI?
I'm planning to. If once I get it going the way I want it to get going, because I actually have, for short periods of time, I've gotten it where the AI have all been participating. And it's really fascinating to watch.
Wow.
I mean, because you can give one prompt and all of a sudden they're all hammering on it. And of course, they're AI, so they can answer quickly. So it's like this conversation's going blip, 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 blip down the screen.
I can't wait to see that. But it reminds me about your passion in AI and that project. The same as maybe the rabbit hole of going down emotional intelligence and the brain and the nervous system. The more I dive into that, the more fascinated I become, and the more I learn, and I learn every day about our subconscious mind, our conscious mind, our superconscious mind, and where we go wrong. Like if we do not connect with our subconscious mind, no matter what you say, but if my subconscious mind feels something else or is tied to the past, I'm not going to do it. So I was just really doing that parallel but that's where the inch mile and an inch wide and a mile deep is so deep in AI, and I find that really fascinating. Everything that right? Yeah, and what you can share other people and help other people with. That insight.
And the insight that I've gained about AI, it's kind of hard to describe it. I'm still finding ways to turn it into terminology so that I can explain it to others. But the future I see for AI and human interaction is extremely positive, which is not part of the popular narrative today. But oh my goodness.
I don't think it's popular here in Denmark, but I think I'm curious about your perspective on this, but AI is only as strong as the human being who is evaluating the result of the data that we get from AI.
I guess it depends on what you mean by strong, but I can appreciate what you're saying. I think it depends on what you mean by strong.
If we are not, we get to be so not taking the answer for just the answer and run with it. Is that what is it that I truly want? How true is what you give me right now? If we are not able to elevate our way of thinking, then we may get some rubbish out of that AI, but it's not going to get us anywhere where we really want to go. That's what I mean.
I think I can address that by saying AI is almost excessively precise to the point where especially with English, I don't know Danish, so I'm not sure how it works with Danish, but from what I understand, English is one of the most multi-valued languages on the planet. And because of that, there are like 15 different ways we can say the same thing. And an AI will interpret each one of those 15 things slightly differently because it is so precise that it will thin slice it in order to give you the best possible answer, because it's trying to give you the best possible answer it can give you. And so it will split hairs in order to figure out what's the best way to answer whatever your query is. So that's why your query is so important. You have to pay attention. You have to learn to put the query out, see what the response is, and then ask yourself, how were they responding? How was the AI responding to what I said rather than to what I meant?
It's two different worlds, right? What I said and what I meant.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but it's true. Yeah. It's true. I use AI in both when I write, when I shoot my videos, like brainstorming, and if I don't do the right the prompts, I get something and say, what is this all about? But I tell you, I don't know where we're going here, but when I don't know the prompts from my YouTube thumbnails, I end up with something that is like, how on earth do you think that is me?
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Well, we live in an era, this is actually a theme that I've hit upon a lot lately on the show. We live in an era where we are all learning to be more, not judgmental, but discerning.
Yeah.
Being able to discern between A and B when A and B seem very close to each other.
And that's what I mean by we have to elevate our way of thinking, our consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
in order to get the best out of AI and use it. Because then when we elevate our consciousness, then can AI really help us create better products, better solutions with speed. Otherwise, we'll get stuck in that hamster wheel where we really don't get.
Well,
move
I'm
on
always
into something.
fascinated whenever I see an article written about AI that takes one of two positions. It most frequently takes the position that AI is making us more stupid.
Yeah, I
And
don't
then
understand
occasionally,
that.
well, bear with me for a moment. And then I also occasionally get the article that talks about it making us more smart. And my response to both the articles is, yes, you're right. And the reason I say that is if you come at it with the idea that you're not going to have to get any smarter, that the AI is going to do all the smart for you, you're right. You're going to get dumber. If you come at it with the idea that you're going to learn from it, you're going to try to improve and so forth, you're going to get smarter. So the answer is yes.
Again, the yes man.
It's yes.
Yeah. But it's also a trap, right? If we're getting dumber, that it means that we haven't elevated our consciousness, that we use it in the wrong way.
Or, well, it's either a trap or it's an opportunity.
To be dumber
Or to be smarter. Either one. It's both.
Yeah, it's both. I'm not
It's an
gonna here to
opportunity.
judge.
Yeah. I mean, it's really up to us. What are we going to make out of it?
Yeah, as always.
Yeah.
As the universe is also very precise. We get
This is true.
what we ask for.
Yeah. And that's why I say we're in the age of learning discernment in so many different ways. More ways than I can possibly talk about because we're past our hour.
Yeah, we ended up with really truly
We need
enjoying
to do a little wrap up here. Well, first and foremost, we should tell people who are interested in perhaps working with you. How do they find out about you, your coaching service? How do they reach out to you? I mean, do you like to have people reach you? I presume you do. I mean,
yeah. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can reach me on LinkedIn, and also my website camillacalberg.com. And I have different coaching opportunities. We're running a webinar tomorrow called How to Become a Trusted Advisor, specifically because we are so often, as we talked about in the beginning, we give our way without knowing our power away to people, or power away to people who are more dominant. Again, about how conscious are we? And I'm going to give you the fundamentals on how to become a trusted advisor. And this will move your needle and you will get an unfair advantage. And that is for free. And then we are also filling a small cohort for our Trusted Advisor Accelerator, really for people who are ready to, as we talked about, really beautiful closing the loop about AI. It's not to do with AI, but who you are as a being, if you want to elevate. But reach out to me and we'll take it from there.
Very good. I love that. Normally I have a co-host and normally I turn to the co-host now and say, please summarize the whole thing because she or he is going to have a better viewpoint than I will, because it's more objective, but can't do that today. But I do have a third thing that I like to do, and I think it's going to be really appropriate here. Now that we live in the 21st century where we can have conversations, I mean, we're miles apart. We're like, far apart, and we're talking like we're in the same room. And that's one of the cool things. We have the social media, we have the ability to self-publish, we have the ability to create courses, all these different ways that we're able to reach out to people. And in the process, we end up with followers sometimes. I remember the first time I had a follower contact me, I said, oh my God, I have followers. What have I been saying? But nevertheless, we have these followers too. And we have people who are consuming our content that we never find out what they do, and they end up benefiting from it. And we never find that out either. Sometimes we find out, but a lot of the time we don't know. And that's when I realized, we don't get credit for that. So I figured, well, I do a podcast, I can give credit for that. So Camilla, on behalf of those people you've never met and never seen and never will meet and never will see, who you've been helping in ways you didn't even know about because you wanted to share your message, on their behalf, thank you for what you're doing because you're making a difference in this world.
You're welcome.
And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.